Jonathan Witthoft, and today I'll be doing a presentation on the history of Taiwanese street fashion. So to get going, I'm going to start on the definition of fashion. And according to dictionary.com, fashion is a prevailing customer style of dress, etiquette, socializing, etc. Today, I will obviously be focusing on the dress aspect of fashion. And this is German sociologist George Simmel's take on fashion, and he said that fashion is a product of a tension between imitation and distinction, which all humans share, and individuals are driven by a motivation to imitate others while at the same time desiring to distinguish themselves. And I thought this was really interesting because it kind of shows the natural progression and evolution of fashion amongst populations as others strive to be like others, and then someone wants to be different, and then it just, and so on. And a theory I really thought was interesting was the trickle-down theory, which states that fashion is basically people of lower social groups imitating those of higher ones. And they do this to distinguish from their own class, and fashion, as Simmel said, is a matter of imitation. Okay, so kind of the modern history of fashion in Taiwan started through the movement into a consumer capitalist society, which began after the Chinese Civil War when Taiwan received aid from the United States, which increased consumerism. And of course, with this increase in aid, a lot of Western ideology and capitalism was spread onto the island nation. And according to DeFonso, one of the journals I read, she said that as Taiwan was transformed in a consumer capitalist society, the fashion market subsequently expanded, and beneficiaries of the fashion market invented and advertised new fashions. People with increasing disposable income had the ability to experiment with a growing range and variety of fashion options through which they could articulate their identity, ambivalence, status, or sexual appeal. So I thought this was cool. Fashion being a way of expressing oneself. Before we move on, here's just like a picture taken in 1979 of a bunch of women dressed in Taiwan, but we'll get more into that in the next slide. So background, here's a little background on fashion during the martial law period, which was 1949 to 1987 in Taiwan. And during this time, American, European, and Japanese fashion brands were being set up in the country. And overall, economic stability amongst Taiwanese people increased, which allowed them to make more material purchases, such as clothes. And of course, style was definitely more westernized during this period and not really explicitly Taiwanese. It took a lot of Western and regional, such as Chinese influence. And political expression was not necessarily like the most free, but a lot of people were able to express themselves through their clothes and kind of express their opinions and using certain items as like a statement towards like the government. But of course, it wasn't like the most strict like government, and as time went on, censorship and kind of went down, but still a lot of people used fashion as like to make a statement on political ideologies. And definitely in fashion circles, pageants became popular, and at those, like, new clothes were being showed up by fashion companies, and then malls, I think, I remember were growing, so a lot more shopping. Okay, and this is women's fashion during the martial law period. In the start, women wore like usually Western style dresses or qipaos, which are a mainland Chinese form of dress, but of course this isn't about like proper clothing, but they were also worn during daily life too. And as it became more a dated kind of outfit, it was kind of evolved to cater to younger generations, as you can see in this picture. In the first one, it's definitely more loose-fitting, conservative, longer sleeves, longer the bottom, but in 1961, like 20 years later, you can see it's a little bit shorter, no sleeves, more tight-fitting. And something I noticed that was interesting was in the 80s, there's this Qipao-inspired kind of trend called the Chinese Wind, but of course the author didn't really know how popular it was amongst like younger generations, but it was just cool to kind of see it coming back many years later. And mini skirts also became popular for women, and actually are still common today because they're really good during the summer months when it's like hot and humid. And these, of course, like many things, they faced backlash from conservatives, and that also applies to jeans. And they were notable because they represented opposition to conservative societal norms and capitalism. Because they transcended social boundaries, and anyone could kind of wear them. And then from jeans, many styles of jeans kind of developed, and short shorts also developed in like mini skirts. They're really good for the summer with that jean material. Men, on the other hand, their fashion during the martial law period was not as dynamic as females. Early in the 50s, a lot more like kind of formal everyday attire was worn, like three-piece suits, and kind of non-formally, they would just wear like collared shirts with slacks or shorts. But as time went on, 60s, 70s, and 80s, we see this more experimental suit style, such as like semi-formal garments, as you can see in this bottom picture, kind of just more relaxed clothing. And up in that top picture, you can see, so military service was mandatory from 1951 like onward. So like there's this kind of like pretty uniform outfit with like the hat, long sleeve collared shirt, and black boots. In the bottom, it still kind of looks a little Western, but kind of has that like flair, more relaxed. Looks a little formal, but a little more casual. But here we go on to modern street fashion in Taiwan. This is really cool because it's just like unlike in the earlier era, it's like there's not just one kind of trend at any given time. There's a lot of diversity. And like I said earlier, while a lot of the martial law era like kind of styles like stem from Western countries or like Chinese influence, today Taiwanese fashion designers draw a lot of influence from just around them locally in Taiwan. And there's of course just a ton of like young people starting making clothes found in Taiwan today. And right here I have two examples. You have Mango and you have Yorkian. They both pretty much just talk about, when asked about like influences in the area, like popular like artists in the area, people who they think are gonna like blow up. They talk about local like artists or labels, and it's cool to kind of see that like hope and like positivity and just kind of hyping up other local brands. And one brand I decided to focus on, just to kind of give you guys an example of modern Taiwanese fashion, is this brand called Angus Chang, and it is a self-titled fashion brand, began in 2015. They sell contemporary menswear designer, which means the clothes is economically practical, accessible, very versatile. So Angus Chang graduated from Xichen University in 2003 and actually represented Taiwan in the London Graduate Fashion Week alongside 16 other designers from the world's top fashion universities, and actually placed first. So I thought that was cool that Taiwan, like this brand right here, could kind of like show off to the rest of the world. Obviously a lot of great fashion cities, and it was cool to see Taiwan place number one. And from their website, their biography kind of says, Angus dedicates to create a unique Asian cultural fusion designed by collaging different cultures he has experienced in Taiwan and adding extraordinary sense of aesthetic, humor, and joviality to life through his vision. So once again, just going off that, a lot of designers in Taiwan are kind of like heavily influenced and incorporate a lot of like Taiwanese culture and just things going around them. And Angus Chang even had a collaboration with Reebok, which is obviously like a very big company, and they kind of had their signature color blocking. As you can see, a lot of bright colors, like just blocked. But cool to see a brand like blow up, get a lot of worldwide kind of attention from a big brand. And one of the like largest kind of things in terms of Taiwanese fashion is the Taipei Fashion Week. And the 2021 autumn winter one occurred in March of this year, actually, so pretty recently. And ID Magazine said, due to Taiwan's early forward-thinking response to COVID-19, Taipei Fashion Week became the world's first open to the public physical runway show in 2021. So I thought this was super neat because a lot of local designers got to be kind of on the worldwide like media, because of course like the top four like fashion cities, Paris, Milan, London, New York, they couldn't really have the in-person thing. So Taiwan was kind of on like the front page. It's like they had the in-person, people could show off their clothes, new designs, and the theme for this year was sustainability. And kind of the aim for a lot of people is showcasing the future of fashion and how things should go, like kind of post-pandemic world. And I think this is interesting because like due to Taiwan being an island nation, they will feel the effects of climate change more evidently than most countries. And so I think there's like a real legit like emphasis on kind of preventing environmental like degradation at this fashion week. And well, the sustainability thing was first like hosted at other like European fashion weeks. The Taiwanese one kind of brought this like big idea on the big stage in Asia, and they kind of were able to just put their Taiwanese flair on things. And this is really cool, but it was eco-friendly, sustainable textile and fabric technologies such as recycled scrap tires, upcycled fish scales, and oyster shells were incorporated to link local textile industries and fashion designers in writing a new chapter in made in Taiwan style. So obviously a lot of crazy materials were used for the clothing at this fashion week, and I have some pictures right here, various designers. So it's all like kind of made from recycled, upscaled like material, and these are just a variety of outfits showcased during the Taipei Fashion Week of 2021. And here are my sources. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two about Taiwanese fashion. Thank you.